Hello everyone, hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today we're diving into a terrifying twist.
Don't run!
Tu Tien makes it home and collapses in Jack's arms after being secretly followed by Mrs. Tui. While at the same time, Mother Ly is pushed into pawning two land title books and wiring all her money to her best friend.
You are most welcome.
If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes. Early evening rolls in over the countryside, and the road to Jack's farm looks the same as it always has. Quiet trees, empty stretches of dirt, a few distant roofs catching the last light. But for Tu Tien, nothing feels normal. She's walking fast, almost limping in places, still sore from days of exhaustion. The bus dropped her off at the edge of town, and now it's just her and this long, lonely path back to the gate. The gate she's imagined 1,000 times while she was lost. She keeps whispering to herself, like a prayer. Just get home, just see Jack. Then she feels it. Not a sound at first, not footsteps, just pressure. Like the air behind her is crowded. Tu Tien slows and pretends to adjust the strap of her bag. Her eyes flick sideways, catching a reflection in a dark window. A motorbike, not speeding, not passing, just hovering. Her throat tightens. The bike stops when she stops. Her blood turns cold. She turns her head slightly, enough to see the rider's posture, the helmet shape, the familiar way the hands sit on the handlebars. A memory snaps into place. Mrs. Tui. Tu Tien's heart slams so hard it hurts. Her mind flashes through every reason Mrs. Tui would not want her to reach the farm. If Tu Tien gets to Jack, everything spills out. The lies collapse. The threats become evident. Tu Tien forces her face to stay calm and keeps walking. She cannot let panic make her predictable, but the motorbike follows again. Closer now. Tu Tien turns suddenly onto a narrower dirt path, acting like she just chose a shortcut. Behind her, the engine slows, hesitates, then follows. That's it. No more doubt. Tu Tien breaks into a run. Pain shoots up her leg, but she doesn't stop. Branches scratch her arms as she cuts through bushes, trying to lose the bike where the path becomes too tight. Behind her, Mrs. Tui calls out, sharp, fake-friendly, the way people call when they want to trap you. Tu Tien, stop! I just want to talk! Tu Tien doesn't answer. She runs harder. Her lungs burn. Her vision blurs at the edges. She keeps thinking one thing. If she catches me before I reach Jack, I don't know what she'll do. Tu Tien spots a cluster of trees and ducks behind them, crouching low, covering her mouth so her breathing won't give her away. The motorbike rolls past, slows, then stops a few meters ahead. Tu Tien watches through leaves as Mrs. Tui looks around, impatient, scanning the road like a predator. Tu Tien! Mrs. Tui calls again, voice tense now. Don't make this worse! Tu Tien's hands tremble, but her brain stays sharp. She waits. She doesn't move. She counts the seconds. Finally! Mrs. Tui revs the engine and turns back the way she came, still searching. The moment the sound fades even slightly, Tu Tien bolts. She sprints through the brush, taking an old shortcut she remembers from harvest days. The farm road appears ahead like a miracle, wide, familiar, leading straight to the gate. Her chest tightens with hope. And then she sees him. Jack is standing outside the farm gate, like he's been carved there by worry and waiting. His shoulders are tense, his eyes scanning the road over and over. When he spots Tu Tien, he freezes. Tu Tien freezes too, because for one terrifying second, she wonders if this is another hallucination, another dream her exhausted mind is creating. Then Jack runs, and Tu Tien runs right into him. They collide at the gate, both of them shaking, both of them crying like their bodies waited 20 days to finally release everything. "Tien," Jack's voice cracks. "You're here. You're really here?" Tu Tien clutches his shirt with both hands, sobbing. I'm home, Jack." Jack holds her like he's afraid she'll dissolve into air. And then, right when the world finally feels steady again, Tu Tien's knees buckle. Jack feels it instantly. Her weight drops, her grip loosens, her face turns pale. "Tien," he says sharply, panic rising. Tu Tien tries to speak, but her eyes roll back, and she collapses. Jack catches her fast, heart pounding like a drum. No, Tien, stay with me!" He lifts her into his arms and rushes into the farmhouse alone, shouting her name like it can keep her alive. Inside, he lays her on the bed, presses his hand to her forehead. "She's burning," he whispers. "Fever." Jack moves like pure instinct. He wets a towel, wipes her face, her neck, her hands. He boils water, crushes cooling herbs, makes a simple hot porridge because she needs strength the moment she wakes. He sits beside her the entire time, refusing to look away, whispering the same words again and again. "I'm here. I've got you. Please wake up." After what feels like hours, Tu Tien finally stirs. Her lashes flutter, her eyes open slowly, confused at first, then locking onto Jack's face. Jack's breath catches. Hey, I'm here," he whispers, voice breaking. Tu Tien's lips tremble. "Jack!" He takes her hand and holds it tight, like he's anchoring her to the world. "Don't talk too much," he says softly. "Just breathe. You're safe." Tu Tien swallows, tears filling her eyes. "Someone followed me," she whispers. Jack goes still. "Who?" Tu Tien's voice shakes. "Mrs. Tui, she saw me on the road. She followed me, like she didn't want me to reach you." Jack's jaw tightens so hard his cheek muscles jump. Anger flashes across his face, but he forces it down because Tu Tien is still weak. "Are you hurt?" he asks quickly. Tu Tien shakes her head. "I escaped. I hid. I ran. I just wanted to reach you." Jack presses her hand to his forehead for a second, eyes closed, like he's fighting tears and rage at the same time. Then Tu Tien starts telling him everything, properly from the beginning. She tells him about the market confrontation, the necklace, the wallet, the fall, the fear, the forest, the healer grandma, the city, the park bench night, the dishwashing shift for bus money. Jack listens without interrupting. Every sentence makes his eyes darker, every detail turning into one clear truth in his mind. This wasn't bad luck. This was people trying to destroy her. When she finishes, her voice is thin. "I'm sorry," she whispers. "I didn't want you to worry." Jack leans forward, eyes shining. "Don't ever say sorry for surviving," he says. "You did everything you could to come back." Tu Tien looks at him, exhausted but relieved. "I thought I'd never make it," she admits. Jack holds her hand tighter. "You made it. And now, we're going to handle the rest." While Tu Tien rests at the farm, far away in town, Mother Ly is living inside her own kind of fear. Her small house feels too quiet without Jack around, and the cold air makes everything feel heavier. That's when Mrs. Thu, her longtime friend, shows up, wrapped in a warm jacket and carrying a smile that looks kind on the surface. But her words are sharp and persuasive. "Sister Ly," Mrs. Thu says gently, sitting close. I know you're worried about Tu Tien. I know Jack is stressed. That's why I came to help you. Mother Ly sighs. Help how? Mrs. Thu lowers her voice like she's sharing a secret blessing. The land deal. It's moving fast. If we add more capital now, the profit will double. Jack needs money for his work too, right? Why not make your money grow while helping your son? Mother Ly hesitates. Her hands fidget in her lap. I don't know. I'm not good at these things. Mrs. Thu reaches over and pats her arm warmly. That's why you trust me. We've been friends for years. I'll handle everything. You just invest. The word invest sounds safer than the truth, because by nightfall, Mother Ly is standing at a pawn shop with 2 red land title books in her hands, her safety, her life's savings, her last protection. Her fingers tremble as she signs the papers. She tells herself she's doing it for Jack, for the family, for a better future. And then she transfers the money to Mrs. Thu. The moment the transfer completes, Mother Ly feels a chill she can't explain. Not cold weather, something worse. Something like regret arriving early. And she doesn't know it yet, but the question hanging over her is the same question hanging over Jack's farm tonight. Will everything be taken from them again? Or will the truth finally catch up to the people who caused all this? The farmhouse stays unusually quiet after Tu Tien finishes her story. The fire in the kitchen is down to soft orange embers. The porridge pot is still warm. Outside, the wind brushes through the garden like nothing happened, like the world didn't just try to steal her again. But inside, Jack's mind is on fire. He sits on the edge of the bed, one hand still holding Tu Tien's, the other clenched so tight his knuckles look pale. He keeps replaying one detail over and over. Mrs. Tui followed you right before you got here. Tu Tien nods, eyes tired. I didn't want to scare you, but I had to tell you. She wasn't just passing by, she was watching me. Jack's jaw tightens. You said she called your name. Yes, Tu Tien whispers. Like she wanted me to step out. Like she wanted me to stop running. Jack leans forward, voice low. Tienne, if you hadn't noticed her. Don't, Tu Tien interrupts, squeezing his hand. I made it. I'm here. Jack exhales shakily. He tries to calm himself, but anger keeps rising like heat under his skin. From now on, he says, forcing his voice steady, you don't walk those roads alone again. Not even for 10 minutes. Tu Tien gives a small nod. Okay. Jack studies her face, the way her lips are still a little pale, the way her eyes look like they've cried too much for one lifetime. And tomorrow, he adds, we go to the clinic, proper tests, no more hiding. Tu Tien hesitates, just for a breath. Jack catches it immediately. No, he says gently but firm, we're done with secrets. Tu Tien's eyes soften. I'm not trying to hide anymore, she whispers. I was just scared. Jack's expression shifts. The anger melts into something heavier, regret. I should have noticed, he says quietly. You didn't suddenly become weak. You didn't suddenly start looking tired. I was just too busy. Tu Tien shakes her head. You were trying to keep everything together. And while I was doing that, Jack says, voice cracking, you were out there suffering alone. Silence hangs between them. Then Tu Tien reaches up and touches his cheek with trembling fingers. Jack, she says softly, I'm alive. I'm home. That's what matters right now. Jack closes his eyes under her touch like the words are a rope pulling him back from the edge. He nods once. Okay, he whispers. Right now, you rest. He stands, tucks the blanket more securely around her, then turns toward the window. His eyes scan the yard, the gate, the road beyond it, as if he expects the motorbike to appear again. Tu Tien watches him. "You're thinking about reporting it," she says. Jack doesn't deny it. "I am." Tu Tien's voice is quiet. "If we report, Mrs. Tui will know I'm back." Jack turns to her. "She already knows," he says simply. "She followed you. She saw you run. She knows you made it home." Tu Tien swallows. Jack walks back to the bed and sits again, lowering his voice. "Listen to me," he says. "I don't want revenge. I want safety for you, for our home. If we stay silent, she'll keep coming. She'll keep trying." Tu Tien's eyes glisten. "I'm scared," she admits. "I know," Jack says softly. "So am I, but we're not powerless." He reaches for his phone, pauses, then looks at her. "Is it okay if I call Vin tonight?" he asks. "Just to get advice. We don't have to do anything immediately, but I need to start moving." Tu Tien nods slowly. "Call him." Jack steps outside to keep his voice low, walking to the edge of the garden where the night air is colder. He dials. Vin answers on the second ring, sounding alert. "Boss?" Jack keeps his tone controlled, but the tension is obvious. "Tu Tien is home," he says. There's a beat of silence. Then Vin exhales hard. "Thank God, is she okay?" "She fainted," Jack replies. "Fever. She's awake now, but weak." Vin's voice softens. "I'm relieved, truly." Jack's voice drops. "Vin, I need you to listen carefully. She was followed on the road by Mrs. Tui." Vin goes quiet again. "Are you sure?" "She recognized her," Jack says. "And it matches everything else. The market incident, the threats, the timing." Vin's tone turns serious. If she followed her, it means she's still active. And it means she's scared Tu Tien will talk. Jack stares into the dark road beyond the farm. "Exactly." Vin doesn't hesitate. "Then you should file a report, even if it's just a statement at first. The earlier you report, the better." Jack's hand tightens around the phone. "Will they take it seriously?" "If you have a timeline and details," Vin says. "Yes. And if there are witnesses at the market, even better. The fainting, the missing items, the chasing. These are patterns." Jack closes his eyes briefly. "Okay," he says. "Tomorrow morning, after I take her for tests, I'll go." Vin adds, "Don't go alone if you can avoid it, and keep your gate locked tonight. If Mrs. Tui realizes Tu Tien is back, she may try to intimidate you." Jack's voice turns sharp. "Let her try." Vin pauses. "Boss," he says carefully, "I understand your anger, but think smart. If you want her caught, you don't want a direct confrontation." Jack exhales slowly. "You're right," he says. "Thank you." He ends the call and stands still in the cold for a moment, letting the night calm him down just enough to think clearly. When he walks back inside, Tu Tien is still awake, watching him with worried eyes. Jack sits beside her again. "Vin agrees," he says. "We report, but we do it smart." Tu Tien swallows. "What if she hurts someone else?" Jack's expression hardens. "That's why we report," he says. "So she can't." Tu Tien's eyes drift down. "And if she has people with her?" Jack's voice stays gentle. "Then we let the police deal with them." He takes her hand again. "We're not doing anything reckless. We're doing it the right way." Tu Tien nods slowly. "Okay." Jack leans forward and kisses her forehead lightly. "Sleep," he whispers. "You're safe tonight." Tu Tien finally closes her eyes, and within minutes her breathing steadies. Jack doesn't sleep. He sits in a chair near the bed, listening to every sound, watching the door, replaying the chase in his head like a warning sign he can't ignore. And far away, across town, in a different house, under a different kind of pressure, Mother Ly is also wide awake. A small town home is dim, the walls quiet, the clock loud. On the table in front of her is her phone, the bank notification still there like a bruise. Transfer successful. She stares at it until her eyes burn. She told herself she was helping Jack. She told herself his Thu was trustworthy, years of friendship, shared meals, shared hardship. But now, sitting alone, something feels wrong. The money is gone, and Mrs. Thu's phone has been ringing and ringing and ringing. No answer. Mother Ly's chest tightens. Her hands tremble as she calls again. Still nothing. She tries to convince herself it's late. Maybe Mrs. Thu fell asleep. Maybe she's busy, but the worry grows teeth. Mother Ly whispers to herself, "Please, don't let me be stupid. Please don't let me lose everything." She scrolls back through messages. She notices small things she ignored earlier. How fast Mrs. Thu pushed her, how quickly she wanted the transfer, how she didn't want Mother Ly to tell anyone. Mother Ly's throat goes dry. She grabs her coat, then stops. It's too late to go anywhere. The pawn papers are already signed. The transfer is already done. She sits back down, shaking, and calls Uncle Dung. He answers, sleepy but concerned. "Sister Ly, what's wrong?" Her voice cracks. "I transferred the money," she whispers. "To Mrs. Thu. She convinced me to invest. Now, she won't answer." Uncle Dung goes silent for a moment. Then his tone turns firm, fully awake. "How much?" Mother Ly swallows. "Everything I could get from pawning the 2 books." Uncle Dung exhales sharply. "Listen," he says, voice steady. "Don't panic alone. First thing tomorrow morning, you go to the bank and ask if the transfer can be flagged. Then you go to the police station and file a report, and I'll come with you." Tears spill down Mother Ly's cheeks. "What if it's too late?" she whispers. Uncle Dung's voice is calm but serious. "Then we chase it with the law, but you need to move fast." Mother Ly nods even though he can't see her. "Okay," she whispers. She hangs up and stares at the ceiling, shaking. In 2 different places, under 2 different roofs, 2 different kinds of fear are growing. At the farm, Jack watches over Tu Tien, preparing to report Mrs. Thu. In town, Mother Ly realizes she may have just been tricked out of everything she owns. And both questions hang in the air, heavy and urgent. Will the truth finally catch up to the people behind all this? Or will the family lose even more before they can stop it? Tu Tien walks the final road back to Jack's farm, but her relief turns into terror when she realizes Mrs. Thu is following her and trying to trap her before she can reach Jack. Tu Tien hides, runs through back paths, and barely makes it to the gate where Jack is waiting. They reunite in tears, but the shock and fever overwhelm her and she collapses in his arms. Jack carries her inside, cools her fever, makes porridge, and stays awake guarding her until she wakes and tells everything: the chase, the threats, and how close she came to being stopped again. Furious but controlled, Jack calls Vin and decides they must report Mrs. Thu and her accomplices to the police. This time, the truth will not be buried. Meanwhile in town, Mother Ly is pressured by her longtime friend Mrs. Thu to pawn 2 land title books and transfer the money. When Mrs. Thu stops answering calls, Mother Ly realizes she may have been scammed and urgently calls Uncle Dung for help.